So let's do one more setting. And again, you can use the same light settings. You could, spin your model in the lights themselves, but I'm going to stick with just creating lights around a static model. So I'm going to use this front setup again and do a southwest view of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is just set up my view. So I'll just come in and let's window around this guy. Actually, you can do it over here. Let's just grab this, and let me double check and see. I don't think, let's unlock these so they'll isolate. And so isolate that. And then I'll come in here and I'm going to set this to my southwest isometric. So I'll just go to set view and isometric and southwest. So I've got that view set. And then I'll go to my named views and I'll save that. So save it as southwest. Right. And then I'll turn everything back on, right? And then maybe go back and lock my backdrop in the base plane so they don't get moved around. And then I'll set my view over here. And then what I want to do is go in and set a new visual setting preset so I can play around with it. So if I go to my visual settings, again, the little fly out here has my presets. And so I have presets for my northeast and my right, but I don't want to mess those up. And so I'll just duplicate my northeast. So I'll come in here and duplicate that and call it 01 Southwest. All right, so SW, whoops, SW, and check. And then I'll make that one current. I feel like when you make one, they should make it current. I always sometimes forget, and then we'll change the other one and have to reverse the names. And so you can, again, go through, and if you want to, you could actually set things back to default or sort of play with them to see, what kind of settings you might want to have for this guy. Let's put high key. Yeah, the high key one is very bright. Like it's almost like no shadows. That's the one. I set that up and you can kind of see it's auto contrasting, right? If you auto expose it, it'll probably even get brighter. Yeah. And then the sky is a white dome instead of the brown. So it's just pure, pretty much pure white. And you can adjust it, but let's go back to our southwest, right? And we want a little bit more sort of drama with this one. So I'll go to the sky box and let's see what the rotation on this guy does. Maybe a little dark on the right side and going to bright. Let's start with it a little darker, right? So I'll come in and it'll be interesting to have it light on the back and then maybe a little gradient on the front. We'll try starting with something like that. So we'll do most of our lighting around here and maybe just a little. So if I come in and minimize this and start making my lights. So I'm going to go down here and go to rectangular light. And I tend to make them and move them into place. So I'm just going to left click here, hold down the shift key, go and get that light. And then here's this guy. So I'll do this as the key light. So this is our southwest isometric. So if this is the key light, typically the key lights are going to be shining, pretty closely to directly on what you're looking at. You can kind of adjust them so they're going, a little off. This one, let's pull it up a little bit and adjust the brightness. So I'll take this down to like a 0.7, see what that does. When it does this kind of thing, again, I would just go to perspective and then just go back to southwest and let it sort of reset itself. It just needs to recalculate the light. The other thing too is that it's always different on every screen. Kind of drives me crazy, but that's okay. So I'll move this guy in. Where is it in 3D space? You can kind of start to work in perspective now. There it is in 3D space. So I'm going to move this guy up, right, a little bit. And you rotate it. Oops, not that way. Need to be more careful in perspective, maybe getting it from the top a little bit, so you're getting that. You can start to move it and rotate it right over, so you're getting a little bit more from the side, right, and getting a little darker over there. So that would be really your sort of key light coming on there, and then we can do a fill light. So maybe I'll just go and I go back here. If this is my key light, you can always take them and like mirror them, around where you get one on the other side, and then you can start to go play with that. And so you kind of have equal lights to start with, and start to move those guys around to see these. It's kind of interesting. Playing with the location of the fill light. So let's go ahead and maybe, pull it over here. What if we get that back corner a little bit more? And pull it a little bit more that way. So you're getting a nice sort of gradient around that corner. So just kind of playing with it. At this point, maybe it might be worthwhile to open up your visual settings and go to your image and start playing with the darkness of the shadows and see how the highlight and the shadows start to react to it. And you're getting some nice definition sort of over here and almost all the way to white over here. So maybe we put a little rim, a little backlight over here. So let me close this. So that backlight would be on the other side over here. So we've got these two, a key and kind of a fill. And then maybe we have another little light that's over there, and maybe it's a little smaller. So I come in and create another rectangular light, and I'll make this one just a little bit less big. Right, there it is. Ooh, that came in kind of funny, right? So actually let's redo that, and here it is, right back over here. And we want that guy, right, to be kind of over here. So I'll come and pick it and move it and spin it around to where, let's go ahead and 3D and look at this guy. So this would be, again, I'm getting one southwest key, right? So trying to stay organized. And this would be one southwest fill. And then this would be one southwest rim, right? So if I'm in 3D and I'm looking at this guy and I want it kind of on the back side, right? Like over here looking towards that guy. So if I bring this guy, spin it around, and then push it, whoops, getting in the way there. Over here, get back out of there. And maybe pulling it up some, right, and then spinning it around. So whoops, probably sometimes it is a little difficult to adjust these guys, right? So really need this one. Back it off a little bit. There we go. So starting to get a little bit of a rim on the edge of that. Let's pull it down a little bit more, right? So starting to get sort of a glow, right, just on the edge. You can kind of see it over here. And you can start to, it takes a little sort of playing around with it to get it. But eventually you can kind of, you get kind of a feel for it and start to play around with it. Once you get to 3 lights, that's a lot. It's a lot to handle. So changing one, somehow the 3 makes it more difficult to keep track of. 2 is a lot easier. Let's see which way. And let's make this big. It drives me crazy working in this tiny little space. But like bringing that up a little bit. So you can kind of play with this until the end of time, right? Oops, got into a wall there. So just getting it to a point where, you feel comfortable with it and it's working. Like that's sort of making this a little softer. You're still getting that line up there, getting a sort of flare there, getting a nice definition. Maybe that could be a little darker. But you could go in and start playing with, how the lighting is set. So if I do a 0.8, what does that do? That gives it like a much softer sort of glow. So again, lots of combinations of things to work with, and getting to a point where you're kind of happy with the overall view. Okay.